Should I fight um what's her face today? Misty. I kind of wanted to oh, you can't go back. I forgot. There was like a trainer up there that I was gonna fight. Whatever. Um Oh, and Gary's here. Let's just do it. Yeah, so the past 2 days, like, I didn't talk about any notes. I just kind of going off the dome about the trip, and it's kind of a good experiment. I don't usually do that. So I think I did okay. I don't know if anything I said was super interesting, but is anything I ever say interesting? Scratch him. Scratch that seahorse. Oh. We're gonna try to fight him as long as possible, and then we're gonna bring in the big guns. Oh, okay. Bring in the big guns. Ready? Choo choo. I choose you. Okay, so here's one of the notes that I wrote down before I went on the trip, and I talked about this actually in the Besties Zoom on Friday. I feel like a big reason why I had to mention that I had social anxiety is because a lot of topics, like a lot of the things I'm doing, I just had this like analogy, like they're locked behind that door of anxiety. Like I can't talk about them comfortably without mentioning social anxiety. Like, oh, I'm doing improv. Like, why are you doing improv? Well, social anxiety is the big reason, like in therapy and stuff. Like, I also like it, but I wouldn't feel comfortable, like, I wouldn't feel comfortable mentioning improv before social anxiety, because you mention improv and then it's like, oh, why are you doing that? And I'm like, oh, I have social anxiety, and it's like, it's all those other things, and like, I wouldn't feel comfortable jumping into that from improv. It's hard because one of the people in the Zoom was like, oh, that could be like a good transition. Like, you mentioned improv, and that can help you kind of sneak into social anxiety. But it doesn't, that's not like, I couldn't do it that way for some reason. I couldn't, that would be harder for me. I get this like uncomfortable feeling, like, oh, I haven't talked about the social anxiety thing and like improv. And so like, I don't know, maybe part of that is just like, I would just never bring up improv because I know it would lead into a social anxiety topic, and it's like feel weird, like I have to spill my whole guts about this whole thing. I don't know. I'm rambling. I felt like I needed to mention social anxiety, and then I could talk about like okay, let's get that out of the way, and then they bring up like, oh, what have you been doing for fun? And I'm like, oh, I tried improv, which I did mention. It was interesting. I didn't mention it the way I thought I would. My cousin brought up that like she used to do like door-to-door stuff, and she kind of hated it because we were talking about customer service jobs, and she was saying like the only way I could kind of process that is to kind of pretend I was a different person, or like they're not mad at me, they're mad at Jessica, like some person I just made up, and I'm playing the Jessica role. And then I kind of talked to her about like, oh wow, that's like exactly what you do in improv. I've been taking an improv class. So we talked about that a little bit, but I had only brought that up after we had talked about therapy stuff. So if we hadn't talked about that, I probably wouldn't have brought it up. Like pretty much every interesting topic about me is kind of locked behind that door. And if I don't mention it, then like what do we talk about? Like, oh, your dog is cool. It's like, ugh. Yeah. I mean, even if I talk about like TV and stuff, it's like part of me feels like, well, I talk about TV so much because like I'm at home all the time and I have social anxiety and I'm not around people. like, so like, there's an aspect of that that I really want to understand, and I'm not getting to it. It's like, okay, let's take the TV example. Oh, I poisoned him. How'd that work? I'm just gonna let Nidoran die, so I get an extra hit with Pikachu. Okay, let's kill this guy, and then I really want to get into like this thing that I'm trying to get to. We're gonna get to it, I promise. Cool, that's cool. Thunderstruck. You been. Ow. Down. Okay, don't die, Pikachu. Wait. Oh. Okay, I think I might kill him. Okay. Let's take the TV example. I guess I'm worried. This might be it, but it might not be. This is the first time I'm thinking about this. I'm worried that like my social anxiety will be like uncovered through the things that I'm doing. So like if TV, if I'm like, oh, I watch a lot of TV, they might uncover like this secret about me that like, oh, you have social anxiety and you don't have any friends, and there might be like judgment there that I'm worried about. But if I just tell them I have social anxiety and I'm working on it and like I know about it, then that kind of takes the power away from a possible judgment. That could be it. It could be what I'm searching for. Does that make sense? Can you think of anything else? Same thing with improv. There's like this worry. There's this worry of judgment, like, oh, you're lame. Because you like improv just like for fun, like you're like a theater nerd or something. And I'm self-conscious about that judgment. Like I shouldn't be, but I am. And so I want to take that judgment power away by like just being like, I have social anxiety, and like that's something that I'm okay with for some reason. I'm not worried about them judging me if I tell them I have social anxiety. I am worried about them judging me if I don't, and they just kind of like figure it out that like I'm a loser and I have no friends. That's it. That must be it. I'm worried about them thinking like that negative judgment of like, oh, he's a loser and he has no friends. But if I tell them like, oh, I'm working on my mental health and like I'm struggling, but like I'm working on it and I'm going to therapy, they can't judge me for that. They'd be like, oh, that's cool that you're doing that. Like you have all these struggles and like you're working on it. That's pretty cool, right? So I guess the anxiety with talking about stuff before I talk about anxiety is I'm worried that they'll make a judgment of me, like a negative judgment, before I can kind of make them think that I'm cool by saying like, oh, mental health and stuff, instead of just being like, oh, I'm a loser. It makes sense. There's a way to brevitize it. Is that a word? Brevitize. Succinctify. Brevitize and succinctify. Uh-oh. I don't know if I can beat Misty. that I may just use Pikachu and see if I can just keep growing levels with Pikachu. Because, like, what can I do with... No, that's not gonna work. Oh, I still have 2 minutes. Right? Is that right? Why can't I read my own writing? 4:11 to 4:23. Oh, okay. 1 minute left. So yeah, I have to stop there because I think I got to a point. I'm uncomfortable talking about, yeah. Okay. I did okay. Anxiety, really just wish I had more to say. I'm not afraid. You will be. I'm not afraid. Yeah, I just wish at this point on the weekend, like I still have social anxiety in certain situations, but on the weekend I didn't have that. Like that feeling like, I mean, the thing that always comes to my mind is like in being in school and the person next to you asks for a pencil and you're like, don't look at me. Social anxiety, like, and then you feel that sting of anxiety. Like that feeling, I didn't feel that at all the whole weekend. I did feel awkward and uncomfortable certain times. But it wasn't too bad. I just wish, like, there would be periods of me, like, not talking for a long time. And then I would be like, I wish I could talk better. Like, I wish I could be funnier and more interesting. And I'm just not doing great with that. And I wish I could do better. But it was fine. I didn't like when I did the barbecue at church, there were points when like I tried to talk and I would just kind of stumble and be like blah blah blah. And that didn't really happen at all. And I did talk a lot. I mean, for me, I talked a lot over the weekend. There's this thing I tried to explain to my therapist that happened at the barbecue, which happens to me a lot, but it didn't happen over the weekend, which is good. Basically, somebody will talk to me, and then I'll say like a sentence. I'll say a sentence, but it won't complete a thought. So the other person will wait for me to say another sentence to like complete the thought, because it's like, obviously I didn't complete what I just said. I just said like a sentence about like, so they'll ask me like, what are you doing over the weekend? And I'll be like, oh, my cousin has a lake. And it's like, okay, thank you, like, keep going. And they'll look at you like, okay, keep going. And then I'll get kind of caught in my head and be like, oh, what do I say next? Like, what's the next thing I could say about the lake? And I'll like wait too long. And then the other person will kind of look at you like, oh, okay, you're done? Yeah, that's weird. Like, you shouldn't be done, but like, you seem to be done, so I'm going to talk now. Because otherwise it's going to be awkward. So then they'll just start talking and be like, oh, lake, that's interesting. Like, what's up with that lake? And when I do that thing, that like, that one sentence weird thing, that's when I can feel social anxiety. Is like, you're getting caught in your head like, I need to say something, think about, like, oh, the lake, oh, and then there's like all these people around and they're like looking at you. But yeah, I mean, that didn't really happen this weekend. I can't think of an instance where it happened, but like the barbecue, I could think that it happened at least twice. Starmie. You can do it. Rock, bro. This is nothing for you. You'll be fine. But yeah. Uh, it went well. I went on the trip and I connected with my cousin and her partner. I said husband before, but they're not married. I mean, they're basically married, but I think you lose money when you die, which is like the only reason to not really do that. I should be able to beat her in a couple tries, though. I did it. I think if this was 2 years ago, I would not have gone on that trip. If you invited me, I just would have been like, no, I don't want to go. I'm just gonna go to this stupid thing, and I'm not gonna talk to them, and it's gonna be awkward. Like, why would I want to subject myself to that situation? And I wouldn't have gone. 2 years. I would say 2 years. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have went. But I went, and also, it wasn't horrible. Like, what else do I want? I connected with a person, my cousin, like, and I think she might actually come with me on my trip to see my brothers in September, and, like, that would be cool. Because she hasn't seen my brother in a long time, and, like, they're really close. It'd be like, oh, I could, like, bring them together, and, like, it's like a connection of people, and, like, what else is life except that? This isn't life. Playing Pokemon is not enough for a life. I've been doing it my whole life, and it's like, it's not it. It's not it. We know. Going to a lake with your cousin, that's it. And I just need to get better at doing it, and then it'll be like, that's the whole thing. This is the first time I ever did it, and, like, it wasn't perfect, but it was not bad, and I could feel, like, the little spark of connection that, like, I need that. A little, what's a good analogy? Spark is weird. A little seedling, a little mustard seed of connection. I don't know. But this is a good thing of just being like, the next time you have to do something, you have to go on a trip with somebody, you've done it, you can do it. You can sit by a lake and just talk about the dog, and it's fine. Like, I even talked with my cousin's partner, who I never talked with that much. He the first day I was there, he was like, I'm going to the grocery store. I was like, I'm going with you. I'm going with you, yeah. Let's go together to the grocery store. Because I'm like, that's a good opportunity to connect with him. So we did, and he talked to me a little bit about my job, and I was like, I asked some questions about, like, the lake. I was like, hey, do people fish here? You get a lot of mosquitoes? Like, I brought mosquito repellent. And he's like, oh, it's not too bad right now. And, like, asked him about, like, the house and stuff. It was good. Yeah, anyway, that's it for today, and I will see you tomorrow as always.